Okay, so welcome to Eat, Move, Think, the show about optimal wellness brought to you by Medcan.
Wow. Do it again.
Oh, I was practicing. Okay, ready?
Welcome to Eat, Move, Think,
the show about
optimal wellness
brought to you by
Medcan.
Yeah, this is extremely good. Thank you.
This year, the movie E.T. the Extraterrestrial is celebrating its 40th anniversary of release.
Wow.
I tried to show it to my kids recently, and the movie is so slow.
Oh, no.
That it was unwatchable and so boring.
You also thought it was unwatchable, or you just feel like that was your kid's experience?
I was bored. I was so
You
bored.
were bored.
I was reaching for my phone, basically.
Oh, no. That's when you know. I mean, since E.T. has come out, the evolution of, or maybe the shrinking of our attention spans has been a big problem, I think. And that probably came to a head for you when you saw that movie.
I think that is where you see it. I think our attention spans are shrinking. I think technology, all the various screens in our lives, the various interruptions in our lives. I mean, you and I have talked about this a lot.
Yeah. I think the phones in our pockets are enabling what's happening to our attention spans and to our ability to focus on how long is E.T.? Like a 2-hour movie?
It's 1 hour and 45
What?
minutes.
See, I swear that's short for movies today.
It's short. Yeah, for a kid's movie too.
But there's research out there that shows that we can't hold focus on one thing for more than like maybe 20 seconds. It is insane.
So in 40 years,
Yeah.
my attention span has changed so much that a movie that I found entrancing and beautiful and kind of wonderful has become unwatchable to me because it's too slow.
And you would think as you get older and mature, your attention span would increase. But instead, it's shrinking like drastically. And it wasn't just your kids who couldn't handle it. It was you too.
And I think, it's screens, it's social media, it's being online, it's text messages. And I think the problem is getting worse. The Pew Research Center is a think tank, and they survey young people about their internet use. And since 2014, the share of youngsters who are online almost constantly has roughly doubled. 46% of young people are online almost constantly now.
I think we can say that adults are probably just as bad. If you look at most discussed subjects even on Twitter, in 2013, a topic on Twitter would remain in the top 50 most discussed subjects for 17.5 hours. And then by 2016, that had dropped to 11.9 hours. So just our ability to stay on a topic of conversation is shrinking. I'm Jazz.
I'm Chris.
We're the producers of Eat, Move, Think. Today we're talking about the effects that our social media use and our constant online presence could be having on our mental health, our wellness, and our ability to focus. More and more, Medcan's clinical director of psychology, Dr. Jack Muscat, is seeing this in his practice.
So in today's episode of Eat, Move, Think, Dr. Jack Muscat talks with our esteemed producer, Jasmine Ratch.
Yes, it's me.
About
my own social media cleanse.
Dr. Jack Muscat provides tips on how you can improve your attention span in the face of technology's constant interruptions, and provide tips on how you too can do your own social media cleanse.
This episode is really fun and a really informative conversation. We had a really great time making it, so hope you enjoy.
Here's Dr. Jack Muscat.
Great to see you, Jasmine. I think it's just terrific that we're doing an episode on do you need a break from social media?
Right.
It's something that we all say we need to do, but we don't know how to do it.
First of all, I want to talk about why this episode is all about social media and the effects and maybe even the damage that social media can have on one person and on society in general.
This is very timely because as we're all thinking about coming back to work or not coming back to work or going back to school or masking or unmasking, we've, on the one hand, relied on social media for the last couple of years to get things done, which has been pretty positive. But at the same time, social media has been going on for years, and we're seeing increasing mental health issues, particularly with young people, but not only young people, real concerns about depression, well-being, anxiety, the inability to get off social media, the concerns about how we're using it. We're seeing politically how social media has polarized opinions across the world and how platforms like Facebook and Twitter are sometimes not the best to be on. A lot of people are just finding it very difficult, ironically, as we're trying to get out there and be more social, because they've forgotten how to do it.
Yeah, and they're getting hooked on these apps. Like, these apps are purposefully trying to get us to stay on our phones and screens as long as possible. Just since the concept of infinite scrolling on a phone or a laptop has been invented, it's estimated that one will spend at least 50% more time on sites like Twitter. Just that setting alone. Just the screens, like the brightness of the screen and the way you might go onto your phone before you go to bed, has a huge effect on how much sleep you get or the quality of sleep you get. And we all know that the lack of sleep can also contribute to mental health issues. 90% of Americans look at a glowing electronic device in the hour before they go to bed. So imagine how awful those people, and I'm guilty in this too, how much worse our sleep quality is just because we want to get that last minute scroll time on Twitter.
Exactly. And I think, we often go to bed saying, oh, I'm just going to read that last little thing. And that leads to another little thing. And I find that even if I'm not looking at 10 apps, but just one app, there are always these hyperlinks that say, oh, here's the background to this, and here's the background to that. And before you know it, you go down this bunny hole and you spend 2 hours trying to figure out, what the best hotel is in Tahiti, where you're not going to go anyway.
Yeah, you're right. It's about more than the brightness of the screen. It's about the way it turns on your brain when you're actually supposed to be winding down.
The other thing that I've noticed, as a psychologist, we've seen 40 to 50% increases in people presenting with ADHD, but a lot of times that is situational and related to their inability to focus.
Right.
They can focus on what they want to focus on,
right,
but they're unable to have sustained attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's why I'm really glad that we're going to be talking about your own experience, plus this book that we've both looked at, Stolen Focus by Johann Hari.
Yeah, we've both read Johann Hari's most recent book, and the stats that we just chatted about are actually from that book. Just as you're talking about the inability to focus on one topic, I mean, just another stat from the book is that in the US, college students switch tasks on average once every 65 seconds. And adults, if you think you're better than that, office workers average only 3 minutes. So we can't focus on things. 3 minutes seems like such a ridiculously small amount of time. But when you think about it, it's true, because we have all of these distractions going on around us.
It's become impossible to focus on anything. The bad news, of course, is that we also are so distractible that when we are distracted, I'm told, and I think in the book it says that it takes 23 minutes to get back to your task if you've been working on something.
Yeah.
So something that should take you an hour,
yeah,
with 4 interruptions takes you 4 hours.
Even if your phone break was 2 minutes long, it still takes way longer to refocus, even though when we think about it, we're justifying it to ourselves because, oh, it was only 2 minutes. It was only 1 minute. But in reality, it's a lot longer than that to get back to the level of focus that you were at before. But all this to say, these are all interesting topics and phenomena that we've gleaned from this book. So, Jack, can you tell me if the book changed your perception of what is happening right now to society?
Mr. Hari is a very, very good writer. He actually wrote a previous book on depression, which I think is very interesting because he has a very focused, even though the book's called Stolen Focus, he has a very strong perspective on mental health issues that come out of inattention and how depression in many ways is a reaction to the world that we live in, where it's very difficult to make connections.
Mm-hmm.
And as we saw during the pandemic, the inability to have good connections with people led to depression and anxiety. What I'm seeing in what we're all seeing in psychology in our practices is, despite all of the presenting symptoms that people bring, the 4 that stand out the most is distractibility, loneliness, negative self-talk, and lack of meaning and purpose. And so I started thinking, how can everybody be suffering from the same thing?
Yeah.
And then that got me thinking about, well, what does social media make you feel like?
Yeah.
It makes you feel like you're connected to 1,000 friends that you don't have, that you don't know. You don't really see them. And you're wondering, what is the purpose of this? So the question I'd have for you, because I'm supposed to be helping people adjust to what is called the normal world,
right.
Is social media the cause of our problems, or is it the result of our human nature. Is this what we want, or are we being manipulated into this? I have my own thoughts, but I was wondering, since you probably grew up with it in a much more immediate way than I did,
true.
what your thoughts are on this whole area.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely we're being manipulated. I mean, originally social media was this gift to us as a way to stay connected and learn things and, you know, absorb as much information as we possibly can and share interesting things about our lives with our loved ones and like with the world. And a lot of people have found tons of success just simply from their social media presence. It was a really dynamic and amazing thing. And it just seems like it's gone a little bit out of control, and that the corporations running these apps are huge teams of experts who their only job all day is to figure out how they can keep you on these apps the longest. And someone who grew up with Facebook the way I did is in no way prepared to limit my usage against people and corporations like that. And once again, in Stolen Focus, Hari makes it very clear that this isn't something that individually we need to work on. It's not like we're weak. This is something that has been stolen from us. And it's not like we need to get rid of social media, but we need to be more thoughtful about the way we use it, both the people who are designing it and the people who are logging on every day.
Right. And Johan traveled around the world talking to people, but he also ended up spending 3 months in Provincetown without any devices.
Yeah.
But he interviewed one of the individuals who was involved, I think, in the early days of social media, near Ayal, who talks about in the movie that I think all of us have seen on Netflix, The Social Dilemma, I think it's called.
Yes.
Where it really exposes how we're being manipulated, how the likes, the sounds, the way in which what we call the decision architecture of the app keeps us hooked. So the eyeballs are there as long as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it was ironic because everybody was watching it and then also saying, yeah, I'm being manipulated by it, but nobody was getting off it.
No.
Because what it's really doing is it's triggering our dopamine receptors, which triggers our cravings, which gives us a lot of satisfaction. And I think it started with that thumbs up likes. Everybody wants to be liked.
Of course. It responds to like a very core need that all humans have, is to be liked and loved. But I'm sure you can talk, I mean, more than I can about the way social media actually can cause mental health issues like anxiety and depression. Have you seen that in your patients?
In a way, it's kind of easy to sit back and say, well, I'm not affected by this, but I found when I started looking at Instagram and looking at Facebook and looking at what people were posting, my first thoughts were like, who cares what you ate? Who cares where you were? And then I started to see that people started looking better than I saw them in real life. And then I started thinking, what are we doing here? And it started to look like, again, and this goes back to Marshall McLuhan and The Medium is the Message, where the very things that you're doing force you in a certain way to present in a certain way. So the whole idea of FOMO came up, where, you know, everyone looks great. Now, psychologically, what ends up happening is people are programmed to feel that they're inadequate all the time and that what they have needs to be replaced all the time. And so what ends up happening on social media is that this sense that everyone else is having a lot more fun than I am. And I think what makes it even more difficult is that it's all visible. You can't get away from it. Mm-hmm. It's like not everybody goes out Saturday night, not everybody goes out New Year's Eve, not everybody's invited. And when it's visible, even when you realize that a lot of these things are artificially constructed, then it becomes even worse. And I think it's really, really hard on young people. I'll talk a little bit about teenagers and Gen Z or Gen Z, because in a way, adolescence is where you make those connections with others and where you need to make them in real time. And what happens is that not everything always goes smoothly. So, you know, cyberbullying, mean girls, the inability of people to kind of slip and pick themselves up and keep going, it all gets put out there. And then you're now feeling a sense of humiliation or feeling that you're not part of something.
Yeah.
And so you end up with a lot of social anxiety. So young people will present and say, I'm socially anxious. And it turns out that they're really, really shy because they don't know how to talk to a girl, or they don't know how to talk to a guy, or they don't know how to talk to each other in a way that they can feel confident. And so we've created even more isolation. And so when we look at how social media, we're the most connected and the loneliest generation ever. And at the same time, how do you get out of it? And it's a real problem. But getting back to some of the other things that you've learned, tell me some other facts that you've come across.
Well, as you were saying, social media can have a negative effect on mental health, such as depression and anxiety. And there was this one study, it was very interesting. It was called Taking a 1-Week Break from Social Media Improves Well-Being, Depression, and Anxiety. It was a randomized control trial from this year. And it found that asking people to take a 1-week break from social media did lead to significant improvements in well-being, depression, and anxiety. And some similar studies found that limiting your social media usage to just 10 minutes per platform per day for just 3 weeks led to a clinically significant reduction in depression. That's not even asking you to get rid of your apps. That's just saying limit how much you use them. Be more thoughtful about the time you spend on them. One more fact for you. A 1-week break from the social media platform Facebook had positive effects on life satisfaction and emotions. And that's from a study called the Facebook Experiment. Quitting Facebook leads to higher levels of well-being. We'll cite all these studies in the episode show notes if you guys are interested to learn more about them. But it seems like finally we have concrete evidence that yes, social media is bad for your brain.
Yeah. And I'm totally on the fence on this because on the one hand, I'm on Facebook, which is very helpful around things like knowing that there are events happening, that there are concerts going on, that there are people looking to sell certain items that you might want, or in one case, there was a missing person that we helped find.
Yes.
But I also notice how the platform uses sponsored ads to draw me out of what I want to do. So I think it requires a lot of discipline.
Yep.
You'll laugh because we'll talk about your experience on Instagram. I have an Instagram account. I've never used it, but I have 9 followers.
Oh, they're your biggest fans.
4 of them were in Japan.
You know what? I have gone to tag your Instagram account before, but I'm like, I always check the accounts before I link them because some people don't want their, maybe it's either your personal account. I chose not to link yours because I can tell that you're not necessarily active on there.
Right.
So I'm like, I don't want to direct people interested to learn about Dr. Muscat to this account because he obviously is not using it too much. But
right. I don't want to be more popular posthumously. So that's thank you for not doing that, Jasmine. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. So let's go over a couple more interesting findings from studies about social media and about attention span. One study at Carnegie Mellon University's Human-Computer Interaction Lab, which sounds like a really cool place. It took 136 students, got them to all take a test. Some of the students had to have their phones switched off. Some had to have their phones on, and they received intermittent text messages throughout the test. This seems kind of like an obvious finding to me, but the students who received messages performed on average 20% worse than the students who had their phones turned off, and other studies in similar scenarios have found even worse outcomes of 30%. That's also from Johan Hari's Stolen Focus. And does that mean then that whenever we have our phones dinging, we're all losing 20 to 30% of our productivity?
One of the challenges with social psychology research is correlation is not causation. I think if we're going to say something helpful to our listening audience is that you have to look at, is your phone something that you're in control of or is it in control of you?
Yes.
And so I think one of the more touching moments in the book is I think Johan Hari was talking about reading a bedtime story to his daughter. And he just looked at his phone for a second. Yeah. And she got up and left.
Oh.
Said, "You're not here." And, how often is our attention split between our loved ones, our partners, our kids, and we're saying, "Oh no, I just have to take this call. It'll just be a second. Oh no, I just, it's really important." And it probably really is important. And we've lost that person.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I see it all the time. People who are sitting out to lunch or dinner with each other, and they're sitting there on their phones. And it's an odd sight, but it's a very common one. It's the polite thing to do, but it's a hard thing to do, is to leave your phone in your bag, in your pocket. People just have a habit of leaving it face up on the table. And how can you not look at a bright screen that's dinging and making noises when it's right in front of you?
We've been talking a lot about why social media is bad because it's bad for productivity. And, as I was reading it, I was thinking, Jasmine, well, is that what our society is all about? Is it all about productivity? That the reason it's bad is that, we're wasting our time. And one individual said they don't like to fly. They'd rather take the train because they can get more work done on the train.
Yeah.
They're not stuck in the airport lounge. And I started thinking, is this what's happening to us, that we've lost our souls, that we're all about productivity? And I'm wondering, when you tell me about your cleanse, which I really want to hear about, how much of it was about you finding yourself as a person without the social media tools? And how do we balance between the two so that we're not just productive machines?
Yes. I think it is a dangerous line to balance upon. The hustle culture that is like very much permeated, I don't know, most people I know, and definitely in big cities. It's like, if you're not working all the time, then you're what are you doing? And I don't really agree with that approach. I treasure my free time. I treasure the time I get to do whatever I like to do or want to do. And if that's nothing, then that's something that my body and mind probably needed. And I try my best to be kind to myself and acknowledge that, you know what, sometimes you need to do absolutely nothing. But smartphones also steal your chance to do nothing just as much as they steal your productivity. So it makes it hard to consciously go out and do something you enjoy when you have a encyclopedia and an arcade and whatever else in your pocket. So during my social media cleanse week, I tried my best to do things that I enjoy, not necessarily to work myself harder than I do on a week when I do have my phone and when I am on social media.
And so what did you find was the difference in the experience? Because in the book, he talks about a wonderful psychologist who wrote about flow, Mental, who said you get in the moment, you get into flow, you get into that feeling. What was that experience like pre and during cleanse? Did you feel differently as a person?
You feel more like you have all the time in the world. Like, I just feel a bit more in control of my time and my actions.
Somebody told me, and I have to verify it, that if you're eating a bitter chocolate, and there's music in the background, and if it's low music like bass, the chocolate will taste differently than if it's higher music.
That's interesting.
It'll taste sweeter if the music around you is sweeter. But if we're so unaware of how our sensations affect us, and there you are in the park, you don't have the phone, you don't have the pressure of worrying about the phone. Did the sounds sound better? Did the trees look greener? Did you feel yourself better?
Well, I think if I had gone a bit more like Hari went and cut off electronics altogether, screens altogether, definitely I would have experienced that more. I still had to do my job. I still had people calling me. There are still benefits that I experienced from not having to be on social media. It was a freeing experience. And I did notice how much more productive I was at work too, which is an added bonus. But coming from vacation and immediately going onto a social media cleanse gives you major FOMO. And over the week, I felt that building slowly. So I'll play you a voice memo from day 2 of my cleanse. Okay, so it's Tuesday. It's day 2 of my social media cleanse. And so far, I mean, it's been a pretty good day. It's the afternoon now, but all morning up until now, I've been feeling really productive, really not bogged down. And then I got a text from a friend who asked me if I was okay with all the pictures that she just posted on Instagram. We just got back from a trip all together, and I gotta say, I'm really feeling an urge to go check which pictures she posted, to go comment on it, like just to, engage with my friends, I guess. So this is my first feeling of like, oh, dang it, I really wish I could get onto Instagram right now.
So what you're really saying, if I understand it correctly, then, is that there is some social pressure to
definitely
be polite and responsive.
Yes.
And not ghost them.
Yeah, or just to, acknowledge like, oh, hey, I'm in this picture. Hey, love you. We're good friends. Like, let's acknowledge that once over, which is all very performative.
So why are we having this discussion? What's so bad about that? How does it go from a kind of friendly, like thumbs up that we're all in this together and we're friendly to people struggling with social anxiety and unproductivity and distractibility?
Well, I can tell you that if I wasn't on a social media cleanse and if I had just logged on to Instagram and to check out those pictures, I can guarantee you I would have been on the app a lot longer than just the time I spent engaging with that one picture, which is why for me, I think that I felt so free during social media. But I did... My FOMO kind of came to a head on day 6 of my cleanse. So I'm going to play you a voice memo from day 6. All right. It's day 6 of my social media cleanse, second to last day. And I've been feeling really good. I woke up this morning not feeling so good, feeling just kind of sick of missing out on updates. And then I thought about it and I realized that I'm only missing a very small number of people's updates. Like, I'm not thinking about the 1,000 accounts that I follow. I'm thinking about like 6 people who I miss getting their updates. So I just got off the phone with like three of them. We just did like a group FaceTime, and I feel like I got way more of an update than I ever would have just seeing their Instagram. And I feel very proud of my call to be like, you know what? I'm just going to call up my friends. And I think that I'm going to try to make that decision a lot more often. But I feel very light, and I don't know, my mind feels more at ease. I feel great.
What's your impression listening to yourself?
I mean, I don't know if I'm lucky or unlucky to hear my own self recorded kind of often as part of my job. But it's funny to hear, just how fleeting every sensation is, and to listen back to something that seemed like it's been going on for ages and ages. Like I felt so I needed to fix the FOMO that I was experiencing. It's just funny how stuck we can feel in feelings like that, even though they all pass.
Listening to this, and it's interesting because our conversation and for our audience, this is very much spontaneous.
Yes.
Somewhat ad-libbed.
Yes.
But the point is that it's not a performative, constructed, packaged show. And maybe it's listening to what you were just saying, is that we're living in an age where we become so hyper self-conscious about everything we do.
Mm-hmm.
And I started with talking about the biggest problems that people have, and we do these webinars on mental health, and the 3 biggies are catastrophic thinking, perfectionism, and denial. And I think that we all need to be mindful. It's sort of like, be careful of phishing, be careful of online scams, be careful of those calls from the CRA that say you have a refund.
Yeah.
That we really have to use these tools in a way that enhances what we're doing. Of course, we're not going to give up social media,
No.
But we have to understand that we're in control of it, and it shouldn't be in control of us.
Yes, I think that it's something that I'm going to just use more mindfully. I would never dream of deleting Instagram. I love posting silly pictures and running my dog's Instagram, which is a hilarious, ridiculous thing I really enjoy doing. Like, I'm not telling anyone here to delete their apps, but I think that something Hari is really great at pointing out is that we can choose a different path. Like, we can use these apps without being enslaved by them. And so I'd love to talk with you about some things that we can do both on an individual and collective level to break away from the way that our focus has been stolen. And Hari gives some really great tips. He has a time locking safe at home that he talks about in a lot of his interviews, where he locks his phone away for at least 4 hours a day, or if he has friends over, or he talks all the time about how he likes to watch movies with his boyfriend, but he will not turn on the movie or he will not have his friends over until everyone agrees to put their phones in that safe, which is such a simple thing, but something that most of us wouldn't think about. Our phones now have settings that you can set to turn off notifications completely or turn them off in the morning or during your workday in ways that you can limit how much they infiltrate your life. And then also something I really liked that he suggested is that if you feel the urge to check your phone, just wait 10 minutes. And if you still feel that urge after 10 minutes, go ahead and check it. But likely the urge will have dissipated.
I like his last recommendation the best because I think it's the most normal, in the sense that if we look at this as addictive behavior and we look at people that are saying, you know, I really got to have that drink, or I really have to have that donut, or I really have to have that thing. If you can put something between you and that thing, like ironically, like an interruption, or go for a walk, or get up from the table for 20 minutes so that you're not going to have another portion. Think about the drink, but don't pour it. I think that works a lot better than locking things in a safe. Because as soon as you tell someone that they can't do something, they want to do it.
That's true.
Just as I think intermittent fasting, which used to be known as you don't eat anything after dinner till the next morning, but now it's like a thing, is that you find a day where you just don't use the phone for 25 hours,
right?
Whether it's a Saturday or a Sunday or a day in the week where you're just not available. And I've done it and I do it. And what I found, the first day, I couldn't wait until that evening. And I opened the phone right away at 9 p.m. and I wanted to see all those emails. And there were like 16 emails and most of them were spam. The next week, there were 8 emails and the third, there were 0. And I didn't tell anyone that I was turning my phone off. And it just feels like you're in control of it. The phone is there if you need it, but you're really not going to use it. And you do other things. You read, you crochet, you talk to your partner. And so that's really where I think that we're so addicted to being addicted that it's really hard to come out of that and hard to say no to things. I want to get back to some last comments that you might want to have. Will you do this again?
Yeah, well, there are some things I noticed about my own usage, my own behavior since this cleanse. I mean, just statistically, I checked my phone's screen time. It went down 47% from the week before I did my cleanse. So that means I only use my phone for about an hour a day now. That's because I have work and, you know, texting people I love. But that stripped all the social media out of it. I realized how much time I was spending just scrolling on Instagram. So I've set limits for Instagram. I can only go on for 20 minutes a day now. I've cut my time by it's only a fifth of the time I used to go on. And I've also set limits for other apps. These are things that if you have a smartphone, you can do. Like, this is something that even these corporations are starting to become aware of, and they're giving us little by little certain tools that we can use without locking our phones in a safe for 4 hours. So I'd recommend that everyone do a social media cleanse, whether it's for a day or a week or 3 months, like Hari does. Like, there are things that you will get to do that you've never thought you had the time to do before, but it's really, these apps are stealing our time. As another example, I ordered a real alarm clock online so that the first thing I grab in the morning isn't my cell phone, because how easy is it to turn off your alarm and then swap to whatever notifications you might have gotten while you were asleep? I think also there are things that we can do to shift the culture around it. If you're an employer, you can set log off hours for your employees where they don't necessarily have to be online or on their phones, or encourage certain in-person meetings instead of insisting everything's on Zoom or on Slack. Just little steps that I think we can all do to better our individual experience with social media and just slowly shift the way that all of society uses and thinks about social media.
The challenge is that you want to be able to not just be in control of social media, but you want to be able to find a place where you can find meaning in your life and where you use these tools as an opportunity to enhance your relationships.
I'd recommend everyone give Johan Hari's Stolen Focus a read. It's a really amazing book. I think you would agree, Jack.
Absolutely. And I want to thank you, Jasmine, for your honest, erudite, and open session with me as a director of psychology at Medcan. And I want to thank all our listeners for tuning in and hopefully not tune out.
No, yes. Thank you so much, Jack. I'm Jasmine. I'm Eat Move Think's managing producer. All you listeners out there, do you need a social media cleanse? Would your attention span or your mental health overall just benefit from a more wholesale technology cleanse, similar to the kind that Johan Hari did for 3 months? Ultimately, that's your choice. But for now, Jack and I really hope that this episode has helped you to just become a little bit more thoughtful about the way that you consume social media and its effect on your focus, on your mental health, and just overall our relationship to technology. So thank you so much, Jack.
Thank you.
That was Dr. Jack Muscat, Medcan's Clinical Director of Psychology, in conversation with Jasmine Ratch, Managing Producer of Eat Move Think.
Be sure to check out Johan Hari's book, Stolen Focus, and follow him on Instagram at johan.hari, that's JOHANN.HARI, or follow him on Twitter at johanhari101.
We'll post episode highlights and links you can visit on our website at eatmovethinkpodcast.com.
Say hello and send us a tip or a suggestion by emailing us at info@eatmovethinkpodcast.com.
Eat Move Think is produced by Ghost Bureau. Jasmine Ratch is managing producer. Social media and strategy support is from Chantal Gertin, Andrew Imex, and Emily Bozick. I'm executive producer Christopher Scholgen.
We'll be back soon with a new episode examining the latest in health and wellness.
This podcast is intended to provide general information about health and wellness only and is not designed or intended to constitute or be used as a substitute for medical advice, treatment, or diagnosis. You should always talk to your Medcan healthcare provider for individual medical advice, diagnosis, and treatment, including your specific health and wellness needs. This podcast is based on the information available at the time of preparation and is only accurate and current as of that date. Source information and recommendations are subject to change based on scientific evidence as it evolves over time. Medcan is not responsible for future changes or updates to the information and recommendations and assumes no obligation to update based on future developments. Reference to or mention of specific treatments or therapies does not constitute or imply a recommendation or endorsement. The links provided within the associated document are to assist the reader with the specific information highlighted. Any third-party links are not endorsed by Medcan.